And the first thing I want to do is just welcome everybody and just we're thrilled that we have added this aspect to the training. We're not exactly sure how it's all going to unfold. It'll be a in response to what's needed, but the overall intention is to explore whatever topic we're on, and this month it's gates, from the awakening perspective. So we're we're opening to work with whatever that is as a portal or a doorway. And in this case, it's the gates. So we're looking at, are we resistant to the gates in our chart? Are we allowing them to have their life from an awakening essential place, a true nature place? Or are we using our gates to assert as an ego assertion, as an identity? Or are we in collapse? Are we blocking our, what you said earlier?
Right.
We trying to stop that energy because it's gotten us in trouble, or yeah, we don't want to show up. We're afraid of showing up with that energy. A lot of the energy is really powerful energy. All of it's really powerful if we let it have its place. So what I'd like to do now is just give a brief tentative overview for today. And we always like to have everyone's voice be heard, whether it's a word, a sentence, or a relational presence check-in. And if we're a small group like we are now, we'll do a relational presence check-in. So we'll just see as it goes on what we're going to do there. But I am going to do a brief meditation on the gate 56, gate 60 transits, just to tap into those, connect with those. And then we're going to talk, Polly's going to talk, she's got incredible insight into the power of limits. So she's going to talk about the power of limits, and we're going to talk about the stories we tell. So we're going to stay on that theme of the 60-56 to enter into this field together. And then we're looking at possibly picking a gate that you're resistant to, or having a challenge with, and seeing if we can work the 6 steps with that gate, actually use it in a lived working way. So, and of course, Q&A. Does that sound good to everybody? How does that sound? Okay, great, perfect. So I think the first thing to do is really, let's come into presence. Let's come into a meditation with this gate 60. Let's just start there. So just begin by closing your eyes for a moment, picturing the human design chart, and beginning, you're just going to want to, if it's not mapped in your mind, just beginning to picture the definition in your chart, the gates in your chart, maybe the gates that are in your head center. You can go center by center, just taking a moment. Do you have definition in your head center? What is that? Do you, and again, if you don't, if it's not mapped, that's fine, but just to begin to lean into the the image of your chart as a hologram that's living, that you can look at in your mind's eye and start to tap into. So the ajna, do you have any of the gates coming off the ajna? Any gates coming off the throat center? Again, just beginning that first blush of that, tapping into that. Gates coming off the identity center, or the will center. You don't have to do any more than just see them. And if you don't, that's fine too. Again, this is a practice that we start to develop our relationship to our chart. Then gates off the emotional solar plexus, the sacral center, the root center, the spleen center. And just taking a breath and relaxing into your body, to your arms and your legs. And now bring your awareness back to the chart and look at gate in your mind's eye. Look at gate 60. It's coming off the root center. So it's grounded in raw root energy. And picture it's coming off the root, going towards the sacral. It's that individual, that middle gate, individual circuitry. If you have the 60 oil, go ahead and pick it up. And this is called the gate of limitation or the gate of acceptance. And it's a pressure to mutate. It's pulsing. It wants to create, but it creates out of limitation. So there's a desire to bring something into form, to transcend, but it takes a space within which to arise. Just taking a moment to feel that root center pulsing, this 60 wanting its life. Richard Rudd says that the 60th gene key is one of the deepest transmissions of the gene keys. It's not easy to penetrate and understand. It will take some time as we contemplate it. The shadow here is limitation. We hear that word and perhaps think, oh no, I don't want to be limited. But we are and always will be until we are dead. Even then, who knows? Limitation is not the enemy. So just take a moment and know for the next couple of days, we're going to be in limitation. Today, during this call, that energy is impacting, influencing all of us. So we just are welcoming and allowing that. 860, being curious about its presence and how it touches us. Maybe you have gate 60, maybe you don't. But for right now, just to feel, allow, and let yourself know your relationship to limitation just for a moment. How are you with limitation? Do you resist it? Do you use it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What's your relationship to this? Having to have a structure within which to create. Oh, yeah, sorry, Polly. I'll let you smell that.
Is it open?
It's open, yeah. So as you're ready, we're going to turn to gate 56, which 56, yeah, which is the gate of the storyteller. And this is collective energy, it's sensing energy, it's all about experiencing life and sharing our stories. There's a desire to open into the experience of our lives, and it's a desire for stimulation. It's also called the wanderer. It's a sense of journeying and being on a journey and sharing the journey. remembering the journeys. It's the casual historian. There's an interpretation in stories. It's not based in facts. And there's an emotional quality in this. And this storyteller is part of what do they call it? The Chanticleer, the 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 weaver of the future of humanity's progress. We're looking at humanity's progress and expanding our understanding of our progress, of where we've been, what's possible for us, not in that left brain way, but in this more abstract right brain kind of way. And again, Richard Rudd has his storyline with the gene key, which goes from distraction to enrichment to intoxication. And he says to court the 56th gift is to learn to appreciate all aspects of life, all its mystical layers and levels, without judging them, without making any one better than the other. That's the foundation we have to build, the cornerstone of intoxication. So, and Polly and I will talk about this, but it's really this can be one of the openings to the multifaceted aspect of life and allowing all stories without resisting or grabbing hold of any particular one as the story. I don't know if you want to say something right now about that or wait.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. So just taking a moment to see, what story are you telling about your life, about yourself? Can you tap into that? Is it a true story, or is it based on a conclusion, a childhood conclusion that's creating a distortion field that you're living into? Do you know? What story would you want to be telling?
Perhaps the identity with a childhood wound could be a story in and of itself.
Exactly.
Who I believe myself to be through that distortion field, and then expressing or experiencing through that limitation.
Yeah, we'll get into that more, but that's right. So just for a moment, open to the possibility that the stories you tell are a pathway to know yourself more deeply as you see what's real, what's not real, and what story you're telling that is creating your world, we could say. Yeah. So just looking and seeing at your chart for a moment, do you have the gate 56 or not? Are you telling yourself stories of limitation? Are you keeping yourself small through limitation, or are you telling stories of limitation as a possibility, as an opening? Just letting yourself take a moment to see what's here for you now. And then just taking a breath and bringing yourself back to the Zoom room, but staying with yourself, staying with yourself. And one of the ways we stay with ourselves is through relational presence. We're in this place of, how do we stay with ourselves and be with each other? That could be one limitation that we're all working with, and look, how do we keep our attention particles back here and be together with each other? So what we'd like to do, like I said earlier, we like to have everybody have a voice in every call we're in, and this is a small enough group, I think. Let's just take I think 30 seconds would be a good amount of time.
Mhm.
Let's take 30 seconds just what's here now with the gates or with these particular gates, either one. What's your relationship? Where are you with gates and transits? What's here? Or whatever is present for you to say. So, Barbara, can we start with you?
Hang on. It's here. Thinking about the contrast between stories and truth, and trying to look at stories as seeing them as possibilities as opposed to reflection of what is or what's a perception or a misperception. Just look at it as both that and a limitation, but both of them as an opening for change or seeing something differently or something even beyond what I can imagine.
Change our timer, our time sound. Thank you, Barbara.
What is Barbara's? Does she have the gate?
No. Mm-mm. So Barbara's one of our trainers,
Uh-huh.
and she leads essential oil classes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Jean Vivi.
All right. Um, I have get 60. I have actually the channel mutation. And yesterday I had a lot of new understanding about limitations. Like I had some stories about it, but they mutated into an understanding and really a feeling of how to use my sacral in order to use to take advantage of that gate, use that channel. So that was the big win for me.
Thank you, Jean Vivi. Barry.
Hi, everybody. Since we talked about this week already, I was thinking about the limitations as well, and I don't have 50, what is it, 60 and 56? Is that the one? Hold on.
60 and 56, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have either gate, but I just feel like all of the gates, all the transits for the past while have been sort of leading or walking alongside of me with my own life, in an interesting way. So, transformation and writing a new story is actually what I've been thinking about, is how I'm writing a new story. So that's it.
Thank you. All right, Karina.
I have gate 60 and I love it. I'm familiar with limitation, but I see it as a creative constraint, and it reminds me of that feeling of when I've got over and through something that I didn't think I was going to be able to, that feeling, that sense of aliveness and possibility. So I really embrace it. I love the concept of alchemy, which I associate maybe incorrectly with that gate. There's always gold. The lead is always, there's gold in the lead, and so this gate is what I hold on to for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Karina. Roxanne.
I've been feeling a little unsettled for the past couple days, and I've been noticing the mind making up stories about why I'm feeling this way. And yeah, so I'm just sort of in this off place right now, and just being okay with it, and just trusting that whatever I need to know will come through. And yeah, it's just don't know.
Okay, good. Thank you. Heidi.
Um, really appreciating the agency with becoming aware of the stories I'm telling myself, and that I have choice to change the stories. Um, and appreciating limitation. I'm also in a fight, feel like I'm in one of those sleep sacks, and I'm just like fighting and noticing the fighting. Thanks.
Thanks.
Should have you again.
No. Hilda.
In fact, I can combine both. I have like a struggle with limitation. I think it's the story of my life. I love freedom. It's very important for me. And I think my story is that I learned to appreciate limitation more, not to be too rebellious and flow within rules and limitations.
Thank you, Hilda. Cindy.
Yeah, this is one of the gates. I struggled with the language here because for me, limitation was a confinement, which feels awful to me. So, and having freedom, but when I really sat with it and kind of reworked what it meant for me, it's the blocks that come up that create the initiation for me to movement, and that's what I love about it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Yar.
Well, yeah, I'm just swirling with these gates. I'm just kind of starting to dive into the gates. So it's like quite a, you know, wonderful. So the limitation, similar to what a couple of people just said, I've considered it a restriction. And just in the meditation, I could feel the power and can feel it's almost like doing what's in front of you. What's in front of you arises, and it's not limitation, it's just what to do. It's just a whole new understanding of that.
Thank you, Yar. I'll go and then you'll go after me. Or you want to go first?
Oh, are we going to be doing
We're
this?
doing 30-second check-in.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I can't stand a limit of 30 seconds.
Well, you're taking my You go.
Okay. Yeah, well, one of the things that I do talk about is the power of limits. I was just sitting here in my new little apartment, which I'm loving, by the way, and I know all of you can appreciate that for me. But I was thinking that we don't have, without the limits of these walls, I don't have a living room, right? It's like the limits define the space, the limits define the content. And so it's a powerful gift to us to notice what the limits might be and to work within those or to transcend them in some way. But I think it's a brilliant aspect of this creation. And as we free ourselves.
Time is up.
Oh, my time's up. Did I get wrong out? I need one of those things that they pull you off the stage with a hook.
I'm going to change the beeper sign symbol for you. There's more to come. So what do you have to say? Yeah,
Good.
no, we want everything. We want to hear everything you have to say. Yeah. So for me, yeah. In yesterday's group, I realized limits are so joyful. There's so much joy in limits. There's so much joy knowing every person here is only going to speak for 30 seconds and nobody's going to take up all the time that we can count on. There's something we can count on and rest in. So that's it. Thank you. Okay, good. Well, I think that's a good segue to you talking.
Now I get to talk. No limits. Yeah, yesterday in our Sangha, we, what I was offering was a memory actually of a book that I came upon probably in the 80s. Some of you may have seen this book. It was, I think that the author was like a Middle European author, maybe Yugoslavian or Czechoslovakian, but the name of the book was The Power of Limits. And his premise was that everything in nature has the very precise design of, say, there were two aspects. One was the pi limit, and the other one was the, what was it? The other one was the golden mean.
Oh, yeah.
And so the examples he gave was like the nature and the design of a flower and showing the different parts of that and how they related very mathematically and precisely to these built-in aspects of all of creation. One of the things that fascinated me about this information was that the human being also has built into ourselves these measurements, these power of limits, that when you look at the art of a child, maybe when they first start drawing houses, you'll see that when they looked at those representations that the kids had created, they could see the precise geometric relationship, say between the doorknob and the door, or the chimney and the house. And all of them had already, without the child knowing anything, of course, they all had the limitation of the pi, that particular mathematical, and the golden mean. And so that's seen in all of nature. This reality, this 3D reality that we live in, depends upon that design. And that design depends upon the limitation. And so what our minds do with limitation is the idea that we are stopped or curtailed. But the gift of the limitation is creation, actually. Without limitation, there wouldn't be any creation. Now, what happens with us, with our conclusion, that's shows up when we're triggered, and then in our childhood wound conclusion, is that instead of taking that limitation, instead of understanding our true nature from our design as the power of limits, we take that limitation and use it against ourselves because it was created out of an error, a misperception. And so all of reality depends on how we see it, right? And when we see through the distortion field of I'm not good enough or I don't matter, then we have a reality that looks like it's against us. And that's what, for most people, feels like their limitation. They experience their limitation as the distortion field of their wound. Coming free of the wound, we are in this version of limitation that I'm pointing to, which has to do with the power of limits and has to do with design and the aspect of control that comes from design, that comes from understanding, that comes from a connection to expression through limits. Like Robin was pointing to the limits of a time, the design of this gathering and the power of limits is how the design is lived into. And so loving the gift of limitation and being, realizing that that gate is what represents that, and this transit is an aspect of that, we can receive, like I said, the gift of it.
So in a way, one of the things Polly talks about a lot, and those of you, like Roxanne, those of you who've been around for a while know this, like she talks about what we have and who we are. And we have our human design, right? That is the limitation we live through, but it's not, we mix up, I think, limitation with identity.
That's right, right.
We think
With
that's,
the wound,
and with the wound, but it's both. It's both
that's right,
the chart, we can identify with that as us,
right?
and that's a limit, you know, or our
Mhm.
bodies as us, right? Same
Mhm.
thing. And then there's the wound. We identify with ourselves as the wound
Right,
until we wake up, until we
Right.
wake up to the truth.
and that is the distinction that you made, the difference between what we have as our design, as our body mind, and as the precision that comes with our design, that we have that. I call it the owner's manual often. It's like understanding, how does this body mind operate in this 3D reality? That understanding is a powerful information. It's a powerful education. Um, what I have this particular design. Who I am is the awareness of it, how I operate in this 3D reality that's created out of limitation, right? The power of limits. And so it's the information is so freeing for us. The power of limits is so freeing for us. When an artist starts to create, like this art that I love that I have in my new apartment, when an artist starts to create a work of art, he has the size of the canvas. That's the power of limits, right? He chooses that particular limitation and those particular colors. And then the beauty of all of that comes forth from the power of limits. So it's very, and I think that as we look at the storyteller, that story that we have may often have been contracted and distorted with our wounded version of it, our being against ourselves, the feeling of not being good enough, but to understand that who I am is laid out in this chart, and I can access, I can see what is the expression there, what's the highest possibility for me through this chart.
Yeah, so how are we doing so far? The conversation landing for everybody, making sense? So we're always looking at how, or I'm always looking at how the rubber hits the road here. So what does this mean for me personally? What does it mean for each of you personally? As we're studying the gates, what story are you telling yourself about your gates? How are you using the limitations of your gates in your chart for you or against you? So what I'd like, eh, anything else you needed to say, or
I
we
think that-
good? What I'd like to do, unless someone has something they want to respond to what Polly says, or has a question about what we're talking about with limitation and stories. Anybody? I'm supposed to count to 7 whenever I ask a question. Supposed to count to 7. Give everybody a chance.
That's the limit.
Ding, yeah, ding, 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 ding. All right. What I'd like to do is like dive in and really work this, perhaps with the 6 steps. We'll see how it all unfolds, but for everybody to pick a gate in their chart that you're having, let's say, resistance to, or feeling pinched by the limitation, you're feeling limited by that gate, or you're feeling, yeah, maybe you want to explore the story that you have attached to that gate. So either from the storyteller aspect or the limitation aspect. Wow, you guys, we are really having a little rain here.
It's raining.
Yarrow, I hope the couch is covered out there. Yeah, good. So everybody pick a gate and go ahead and put it in the chat. What gate you're picking. Okay. So Cindy's got 4, Roxanne's got 39, Yarrow's got 17, Heidi's got 45. Now that's interesting, right? 45. You'd think, well, that's a great energy gate. You know, that's the gate of leadership. So what's the story Heidi's telling around leadership? That'll be interesting to see. Karina, 63. That's one of the yellow flag gates. I can understand that. 39 is yellow flag gate. By yellow flag, I mean it here on Maui, if you're going into the water, they have a green flag, a yellow flag, or a red flag. Green flag, go ahead. Yellow flag is caution. Be aware, be awake. When you have this energy in your chart, you really need to be awake and aware of how it's living out, how you're with it. Red is like, don't go in the water. We don't have any red flag gates in the chart, but we do have yellow flag gates that we want to be respectful of. Jean Vivi, intuition, fear of the future. Yeah. Linda, 24, rationalization. That's great. Barbara, 49. Yeah, relationships. Hilda, 60, limitation. Charlotte, maybe 60, 53. Yeah. Barry, I didn't put your name in when I renamed you, Barry. I took your name out. I wanted people to see you were a projector. Gate 4, Cindy and Barry. Let's put Cindy and Barry together, Jean Vivi. Yeah, we have a list of the yellow flag gates. You know, honestly, Karina, when we've given this list out, it's like we go through and almost every gate could be a yellow flag gate in truth. But yeah, we can give you the ones when we're doing a session with someone where we for sure are going to want to say, wow, you've got gate 51. Okay. You've got gate 10. Let's look at gate, neon. Let's make sure we highlight that. Gate 47, mindset. Those are some of the ones we really want to be aware of. Gate 29, perseverance, just to give you a taste. So we're going to go ahead and go into breakout rooms. And Barry, I'm putting you with Hilda so that you guys can meet, because Hilda, Barry is going to be your trainer. She's going to be looking at your homework so you can get to know her a little bit. Karina, Joe, who's not here today, I'm going to introduce the two of you. She's Canadian, lovely. You guys are going to love each other. So you'll be working together. Yeah. And let's see. Cindy, do you have any thoughts here before we go into breakout rooms?
No, not right now.
Okay, that was a yes, no question.
Yeah. Yes.
Down, girl, down. All right, we're going to go into breakout rooms for 10 minutes, not a long time, 5 minutes each, just sharing what you're just exploring, looking. One person is in relational presence, the other person is the listener. So we'll do 5 and 5, and then we'll have 2 minutes or 3 minutes afterwards where you can just do crosstalk with each other. But really for that first 5 minutes, just let yourself be in curiosity and exploration around the limitation, or is this ego driven? Is there a ego assertion with this? Is there a collapse with this gate? What's your curiosity? Any other thoughts you have for them to explore? Sound good to everybody? You all good with this? Okay, I will set the timer and we'll send a note when you have a minute for each person, and then when it's time to come back, when the minute, and then switch, and then minute, and then take say 3 minutes just to connect, and then come back. All right, Jean Vivi, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, hang on, let me set the timer before you put people into rooms, because something funny happened. All righty, go ahead. Welcome back, everyone. We had an interesting conversation with Jean Vivi about his gate 57. We wanted to hear what your experience was. And what we realized is we're really looking as we take on a gate and explore it for what is there a place we might want to do the 6 steps that would make sense to do the 6 steps with this gate, the energy. What are we harvesting here? So we just want to open up the floor and check in and see what did you discover? What was that like for you? Jean Vivi, you want to start and just share what you were saying with us?
Okay. So mine was 57, intuition, that I experienced a lot of fear of the future when my intuition is about something in the future. And it feels, I have an image of being a small child in front of an abyss, that the universe is really unknown and dangerous. And that my intuition is not really connected to me. There is a disconnect. I have another kind of intuition when I'm listening to people, like my gate 13, the listener, and I can intuit what they say and what they want to say that they don't. So it's not related to time, but anything related to the future brings fear and a disconnection, a sense of disconnection.
So this
so-
would be a great place for him to do the 6 steps,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
So let's hear from some of you, and then Holly will work with someone if someone would like that to go deeper into this. But we just want to get a flavor from the group. How was that? What did you discover? What did you learn? Yeah, Charlotte.
I would love to share. So I picked 53. Despite I'm aware, so I'm really good at starting things and jumping into things. I have, however, become wiser in making the decisions especially after learning human design and my inner authority. And what I shared also with Linda was that it's like for years I've seen like my spirit animal, like I got that image of being a turtle that can swim super fast in the water and then sometimes get up on the shore and sit in the sun. We have a lot of those here in South Florida, and they sit in the sun for hours and then suddenly they get into the water and they swim fast. And I also told Linda, it's hard for me sometimes to just say, now I'm just talking about the gate because I see the connection with everything, but I'm trying as good as I can. But what I see is like, because of all the definition I have and the large split, whenever I'm going to make a decision, I really need to sit in that sun a long time. And I just want to say actually that, yeah, the 53, it was the earth, my conscious earth is in that gate. So sitting, like really being still is how I take the best decisions. I do, however, because now we're supposed to really figure out how the limitation comes, it's like I still feel there are like so much that wants to be birthed through me. and and there's a limitation, like there's a limitation what I can do at one time, and then there's not. Like it's because who said what is a lot and what is not? But I notice there's something I can soften in my mind with this. I definitely have been snapped over the fingers. I definitely have had hurt from starting and doing things that just came as ideas through me. So I think sometimes also, I'm just getting more aware as I'm sitting here speaking. I hope it makes sense to everybody. I don't know if I sound blurred, but I'm just speaking what comes to me. But what I notice is, yeah, here's something. I notice that I still, oh yeah, this is good. I still feel this. There's a fear of, oh my God, it's still there. There's a fear of me starting something that where I really feel a big yes and a big like it's spirit, like go do this, Charlotte. Fear of burning out, fear of losing myself, fear of not taking the time as the turtle to sit in the sun and warm up um or fear maybe of getting trapped when in something in the water with all the pollution, like being trapped in the water as I move fast, because I can move fast. But I gotta find that balance. So that, yeah, so that's it. I talked a lot, I think.
So, just for everybody who doesn't know Charlotte yet, she has 8 defined centers and a totally open throat. So just you're starting to get the flavor of how our designs play out. But what I want to point out for everyone here is that Charlotte pointed to 2 things. One, solving the problem at the level of the problem. I need to do this. I need to take the time in the sun to be the turtle. So that's fine. That's one way we approach this. But what we're looking at in the awakening and transformation is the second place she went. Like there's a fear there, there's a story, and usually it's repressed. So she let it kind of bubble up, and she's not walking around with that story. But when she pauses and gives herself time, like, oh, there's a story of fear here that for me to like come to truth with, to put on the altar of the 6 steps or whatever tool you would use to see, well, what's fueling this, right? And how can we come into clarity and yeah, clarity with it. So I want everybody, as you're looking at your gate, to think of those 2 aspects. Like, what's the solution? Am I trying, how do I want to fix this? And maybe there are some good solutions at the level of the problem. And is there something that's a story, a childhood conclusion that's feeding my relationship to this gate? Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah.
Now, one thing that can always apply that we would think of at the level of as being at the level of the problem is how much more can I see? Because all of reality is a perceptual experience, right? Whether we're seeing through the lens of the distortion field of our wound, or whether we're seeing clearly, it's how much more can I see? And that was very good work as you went deeper, is it, Charlotte, right? Yeah, as that perception increased for you, things surfaced for you that were an aspect of this experience for you. Really good.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Who else? Who is it yours to share your relationship to the gate? What you discovered? You don't have to have it all figured out, just your process. So we can be both Polly and I are generators, so we do really well in response. Hilda or Roxanne or Karina.
Yes, I can share. I
Great.
gate 63, which is my son. And actually, I was speaking a lot of it when I was sharing around the way that I can start something, then lose steam so quickly because the self-doubt starts kicking in, and I'm using the gate in the wrong way. It's supposed to be outward. But then towards the end, I just mentioned about I'm seeing my partner tomorrow, and I was feeling some doubt around that was coming up. And and Yarrow suggested, oh wow, that could be a really interesting place for me to explore myself in relationship, my relationship to myself in as I stood and as I understood it. And I think, gosh, yes, that's where I really do feel a sense of limitation, and where self-doubt comes in and creates all sorts of behaviors that I don't like, which creates more self-doubt. So that was my experience. It was really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because that's 63, right? That the low side of that, the collapse of that is turning it on ourselves, right? It's not meant personally. So at the level of the problem, how do I work with that in the moment? But really, what's driving that underneath? Why is that story turning on you? You know, what's the early conclusion that would have that story be that self-attack? It's really self-judgment, self-attack, right? The 63 turned on ourselves.
What is the high side?
The high side is looking out into the world and being very smart about sensing yes, no, or that's a good direction for me to go, or not a good direction. It's the beginning of the logic cycle. It's the beginning of what would be a good step for me here. What might be, and being really, it's having a nose for something that smells bad, kind of like, no, not that. Like, I have the 63 and I know, okay, I knew immediately to call you, like my sense of, you know, you're someone I need to work with, right?
I think it's my
You do have 63.
63.
Yeah. Great. Thank you,
Good.
Karina.
Yeah.
Who else? Oh, Barry, you had your hand up.
Hilda and I mostly just got to know each other a little bit through this conversation, but I would have to just throw out there that my 4323 channel, not either one in particular as a gate, has been, you know, enlightening, you know, as far as like getting to know. It's also my incarnation cross. So but it ties into like being a little kid and not being understood, you know, so it's the freak genius channel, and it just makes perfect sense because I've spent half my life feeling like I'm either not understood, or I'm making no sense, or I'm way out on a limb. I do have like really the ability to go all sorts of places, and I think learning that A, that's there, and then B, I have this projector you know, design where I'm supposed to, or I should say even my strategy and authority are to wait to be recognized, and to, it's the emotional, you know, ride the emotional wave. And all of those things have been really difficult to put together all at once as I live my design. I mean, awareness and understanding that, like, I don't know what the right word is, but almost like maturing, you know, and owning this design versus just letting it run the show has been helpful. And, and to your point, I'm sure a lot of this from a, 6-step perspective has to do with like what I thought was going on. I always say this, it's not the delusional, but the distorted, you know, understanding of how I thought, what I thought was going on and what I thought that meant about me. And then, oh, come and find out I'm actually am a freak genius. I just sort of like, was it really the distortion field, or is that really who I am? Anyways, it's
Right. So,
Yes.
so there's two things again that Barry's saying. One is, you know, for all of us, when someone sees their design, it's like, oh, relief, makes sense, no wonder. That's one piece. But then to do the next piece of seeing, well, what conclusions did I draw from the wounding of my design, right?
Yeah.
What conclusions did I draw that I'm living out of, that I can't just change consciously necessarily. I can know it, be aware of it, understand it, have compassion for it. But how do I step back and let that design have its life, have its power, not be in resistance to it? That I think that's, we're asking ourselves here to take that next step, or inviting ourselves to take that next step.
Yeah, identification is key at this intersection that Robin's pointing to, because the step back into the awake awareness that is my true nature, and my appreciation and willingness to be expressed through this human design that I chose, right? We then it's like the opening into freedom, into the freedom. That's what I found for this body mind unit, for this design, occurred with the awakening, right? And that awakening can occur at any point where a distortion lens is cleared through the work, through the 6 steps, through seeing that unavoidably I put something in place that's screwed up everything ever since, right?
So we have about 15 minutes. I wonder, Barry, do you want to do a little piece of work on the 6 steps with that right now? Or how would you feel about that? That was a yes, no question. How would you feel about doing that?
I would welcome that if other people are, yeah, I would
Yeah,
welcome
we
that.
want to do this as a model for what we can be doing with ourselves with each of these gates, right? So let's, how would it be to pick one of those gates? Next month we'll do the channel, but how would it be to pick one of those gates, or this let's just say the freak genius. Let's just say the freak genius aspect.
Yeah. Well, there's this like breakthrough, I guess the breakthrough part where I'm inclined to, have an idea, speak an idea.
So where would you go with this, Polly?
Well, what's your experience? This is Barry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your experience with being shut down, or feeling inhibited, or repressed, or judged? It's
All of that.
all of the above. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So if I mean, the most effective way for the 6 steps is I'm triggered. So at this point, for you to recall a specific, it may have been recently, it may have been or in the past, but for you to recall an experience of any of those triggers.
I can recall young and more recently being triggered, or not more recently, but like as I grew up repeatedly, triggered by or hurt by the fact that I could see things. I had sort of I'm a 1-3, so it's constantly investigating and looking into and finding out more information. So I could see things. And so I would raise them to adults in my life. Say, I see you. Like, you need to stop this. Like, you can't keep doing this. Like, that's my, so much so that when my grandmother died, there were letters from me about the way to her, all over her apartment, about the way she was treating my mom. Right. So I was that person that was just going out and
How
telling.
old were you at that time, Barry?
It probably started when I was in high school, middle school with my grandmother. But
Right.
the other stuff was, with my own mother, really, when I was much younger.
Sure.
Constantly trying to get to the bottom of things and change things and control everything.
Right.
It was an alcoholic home. I
Yeah.
need to say more. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go into that, the recall of that trigger, the way it felt to be shut down, not heard, not attended to, and the way it felt, the trigger was that I'm expressing, I'm offering something here, and it's not being received, right? Is
Yeah.
that the trigger?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about me. Makes sense to you?
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
well, I wasn't comfortable and wanted it to change, right? So it was about me.
Right, exactly. Good. Yeah. The third step is, what was the feeling when that was going on?
Oh, sheer, I guess fear, anxiety, um, anger.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, I remember anger.
mhm. Typically, we know that anger is a secondary emotion, so underneath that was probably the hurt or the uh, a sense of.
I think it was hurt. Yeah, I think it was really
I
hurt.
think that was what I felt. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so the fourth step is using that experience of the hurt, the dissing that was going on that you were experiencing, using that, just allow yourself the earliest time when you were experiencing that. It may have been pre-verbal, but just an earlier time than this particular trigger.
And I want to invite all of you who are witnessing this to see if there's something in your own life that resonates with that.
Mhm.
I know Byron Katie used to say, this is not the Oprah Winfrey show. Like, this is for you.
Right.
We're witnessing Barry do her work, but this is for us.
Yes. Mm. So do you have any memory that arises, Barry, of feeling that same way, that hurt feeling? That would have been at the heart of it, I suspect.
Yeah. I don't, I, by the time I can talk, it was coming out. So it was probably pre-verbal, but there was definitely a, a sense of like asking for what I needed and not getting it, or asking for what I wanted and not getting it.
Mhm. When that was going on earlier, and maybe pre-verbally, but when it was going on energetically, if not languaged, you concluded that it meant something about you. This is the unavoidable conclusion that it was never true, but unavoidable, right?
Mhm.
Intuitively, what do you believe you concluded that it meant about you? I must be.
Well, I must be unable to, I could go so far as to say what I was saying had no value or didn't matter to the people I was supposed to trust as caring about me. I could go that deep. And then I think on top of that, another takeaway for me has just been not being understood,
Right.
just not being able to get people to understand, or it felt like I couldn't get people to understand me.
And the experience of that for the child is what's at as we incarnate, what's the motivation for us is to incarnate into connection, right? And for most, all of, I could say across the board for everybody, the wound is what isolates us. It keeps us back here with ourselves without the possibility of what we know is our lifeline, which is our early experience with the mother or the caretakers, right? And you concluded that, what did you conclude? I can't do it. It's not going to work. I'm
Well, I
not.
didn't conclude that because I kept trying. So I guess I concluded that I couldn't. One thing I concluded was I had to try different ways to be heard and understood. Like that I had to keep trying. I guess I was desperate enough. I was the oldest sister of little kids. I think I was desperate enough that or my design designed me to keep trying and to keep and be shocking sometimes and to do things. I have a 51 gate 51 in there that like speaks to my shock in my life. And so it just it made me pretty I'm relentless. You know what I mean? I was relentless then. I'm relentless, can be relentless now.
It's something like, it's up to me.
Mhm.
It's my
Right.
job to straighten this out.
Well, that would be the motivation for that ongoing efforting, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so I do think that Robin pointed to something that you haven't expressed yet, but probably is operative. And that is, it's not necessarily, it's just up to me, but it's my fault if it's not happening. That
Yeah.
may not land for you, Barry. I want to be careful here.
No, I felt very responsible. Yeah.
Right, that's it. Yeah, so it's my fault if it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And what's true about somebody whose job it is to have something work and they can't do it? What would be, that can be very subtle and unexpressed, but what comes to mind? There must be what I must be.
Yeah,
if
there
I
must be
had a
something wrong
job,
with me. Yeah.
what was that?
There might be something wrong with me, or there's,
Yeah, that's what sort of gets put into play with most all woundedness. When we get through the layers of it, the experiencing of it, we come to this place where I can't do it. It's up to me and I can't do it. This kind of impotence, this kind of inability to the inability to share your gift and the longing to connect, all of that falls back on us because we know ourselves as being everything that is. That's the nature of the incarnation.
right.
And but shining the light on this, there must be something wrong with me.
Mm.
How's that, Barry?
Well, I can see how that would play out, because then I just with all my motors, just over compensated or
Right.
would try anyway, like kind of like in a lot of times, like somebody mentioned earlier, Hilda, about being like rebellious, like I just went out there at it anyways. You know what I mean? Like I said what I wanted to say anyways. It got to the point where I didn't really care if it was landing or changing anything. I don't know, it became pretty, at least in my family, it became pretty volatile.
Uh-huh. So that persistence was your adaptive behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. We have about 3 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So what we want to do is, from the perspective of all of us together here, represent the light of awareness shining on this for ourselves, because most everybody has this aspect, and in specifics for you, this must be something wrong with me. And the adaptive behavior that came out of that you've just noted was the persistence, the need to convince, the need to try. And that's where now we're at the point of the light shining on that distortion that was unavoidable, but never true. There's something wrong with me. We dispel that through, I forgive myself for ever having believed there's something wrong with me. Can you go there at this point, Barry?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Yeah, it's just a bright shining light. And as that light shines, it dispels the distortion. I know who I am. That's the declaration. As the distortion field clears, is true knowing of who I am. I am the awake awareness in which all reality arises, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Polly can't see your face, but I can.
Mhm.
So I just want to, as we, we're going to close in a few minutes. We could go over a minute or two here, but I just want to check and see what your face is telling us, what your expression is, if there were words for what's here now.
What flashed in my mind is I just got a text from somebody I've been helping in a coaching mode, and they wrote to me and said, "You are magic." And I literally like looked at it like, I'm not sure I believe that, you know?
Yeah. Mhm.
So this is helpful.
Beautiful. Yes.
So for all of us, I mean, I love this progression. For all of us, we have adaptive behaviors that we identify with as even a good thing. Like, I'm persistent, I keep going, I'm going to make this happen. Barry's going to go out in the world and change the world. Underneath that is this, something's wrong with me.
Right.
You heal that, and what you do out there, Barry, may really change,
Yeah.
right? Might really, those motors might be used in a different way.
Yeah, and Polly has helped me before, so I am healing. And
Yeah,
another time we'll talk about how that's obvious, but thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Barry.
Polly. Thanks, Robin.
So the homework, if you choose to take it, is to go through your chart and, take a gate at a time, and, or, sit with a gate in meditation in the morning and see, what's your relationship to that gate? What are your adaptive behaviors with that gate? Is there a 6th step you might do with that gate as an access point to come into a different relationship to that? How have you been living that out in a just a habitual way, perhaps out of a distortion field? Like, to really own your gates in your chart, like take this on as a practice. That's the offering. So I know it's we're at the close here. I just again want to go around and give each person a word. Just close your eyes for a minute first and just put your hands on your heart and see what am I taking away here? What touched me? What story? We never even talked about the story piece about restoring, but perhaps there's a new story. I can use the limitation of my gates to open into a new story. And then we'll just take a minute here just to say one word each. Starting with Cindy.
I think what's here right now is that we are all magic.
We're all magic. Okay, sentence or word, great. Roxanne.
As well.
As well. Linda.
Triggers or medicine.
Triggers or medicine. Hilda.
Breakthrough.
Breakthrough. Karina.
Freedom through your limitation.
Freedom through limitation. Barbara.
Incarnated for connection.
Can you say it a little louder?
I incarnated for connection.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great story.
Charlotte.
Awakening.
Awakening. Heidi.
I'm taking my mind's hands off the external and putting them on my heart.
Yarrow.
Kind of openness. Openness feels lovely.
WB.
Trust.
Trust. Barry.
I'm glad I didn't already write the book.
Timing is everything, right?
Oh my gosh. So for me, it's just gratitude to be in this working field with all of us. And Polly?
Yeah, the fun of it all.
Of course, I go to work, she goes to fun. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Blessings. Write your experiences in the forum if that would be supportive for you. What triggers you have with your gates. We can start a whole kind of opening into this conversation that we can bring in to work with our clients, work with our friends, work with ourselves. All right. Love you.
Aloha.
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 Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Robin and Pali.
Thank you so much.
Uh,